recording here. Welcome everybody to Wednesday Wellness. My name is Dr. Frank Hatch. I'm excited to have everyone here. Tonight we have an amazing treat for you. I actually got to meet Stephanie here few years back when she joined our business, and I'm so grateful. She has an amazing story that she's going to share with us. Just kind of a couple tidbits. We're going to have Stephanie do the presentation this evening. After we're done, we'll actually go stop the recording. Then we'll have a few questions afterwards if you guys would like to ask, but I don't want to have any questions asked. We'll let her do her presentation. So let me introduce Stephanie. Stephanie Kreun. She is actually a Pro 5 in our company. It's amazing. This is a group of us that gather together here, and we kind of have like-minded goals and like-minded passions, and we want to help people. And so that's how I met Stephanie. She loves helping people. So I want to just introduce her a little bit, and then I'll let you run with it, Stephanie. Stephanie Kreun is married to Corey, and they have 3 boys. She has a degree in exercise and science nutrition, and was recruited several years after that into the pharmaceutical world, where she actually worked for about 15 years in both in Illinois and in Arizona. 2010, the world got rocked with a lot of people. Stephanie found herself looking for a job. She was downsized. She was one of those that was downsized, 1,500 people, and found herself looking for another job. So she went and said, I need to do something. She went and furthered her education, which is amazing. And one of the things that happened, she got an education in holistic nutrition and began working alongside of conventional medicine. Let me put my glasses down here. Conventional medicine, and also there soon after went to a holistic practice, and where she introduced to LifeVantage. Now, what's really crazy, she has a great, cool story about her son, and I'll let her share that, and the radical improvements and changes she's seen with him on the products that set her heart on fire for LifeVantage and what it is about and network marketing. So Stephanie, with that, I'm going to let you take it away.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks for giving information about my past. I think you almost said pharmaceutical war.
Yeah, right.
Maybe perhaps we could say that. It was a little bit of a war. Actually, the war was inside of me mostly, because when I realized that really the body's capable of healing, and it has that we are our own physician inside of us, that exists. And when I figured that out, I was like, whew, I am in the wrong industry. But the fact is I wasn't just going to walk away from that 6-figure income, right? I called them my golden handcuffs, and I was handcuffed, and I was doing that every day, but not feeling good about what I was doing. So when downsized and met with the opportunity to be at home, I thought, hey, why not? I'm going to follow what my degree is in and what I'm passionate about, which is nutrition. What I wasn't expecting, you guys, was that in 2010, that same year as a layoff, we were delivered a baby, and he came to us from the foster care system. And you don't know what you don't know. And we began a really big journey. We today have a very different life than what we experienced the first 6 years that he came home. So a lot of trauma. But I'll fast forward. What ended up happening is diagnoses. He's on the spectrum, ADHD, a lot of neurodiagnoses and learning disabilities and delays. And so we've just worked through that for so many years. And so I will tell you though, from my heart, when the diagnoses first came, we were already doing a ton of natural medicine, and we were doing, I was doing what I thought was about everything. I was spending about $500 a month on supplements, and I thought I was doing a really good job of diet too. And at that time I was going back to school. So that got even better, which I'm going to talk to you about tonight. Because I think in the role when we're looking at kids on the spectrum and we're looking at autism, nutrition is foundational. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about nutrition. I'm really just going to do kind of the umbrella overview. Hopefully it speaks to some of you about things that if you know somebody on the spectrum, or you yourself are parenting a child on the spectrum, or maybe you are yourself, things that can make you aware that you can get busy doing right away to help the quality of life of yourself or somebody that you love. Because what we put in our body 100% matters. So I was, like Dr. Hatch said, I was working for a more of a holistic practice. And, if I'm speaking to any mom and dads out there, you ever had that morning that morning when you get to work and you're like, this is the last place in what I want to be. I can barely take a deep breath. There's an elephant sitting on my chest. My life is chaotic. My life is crazy. And I don't know that I can keep doing this. That was my morning. And I walked into the office and I just wanted to go in my office and close the door, but I didn't have an opportunity to do that because the doctor I was working for was sitting there. And I was like, yeah, I can't right now. I just can't. And his words were, aren't you using LifeVantage products? And I was like, I don't even know what they are. I'm not really sure. And thankfully he made a phone call to Dr. Brimhall, who actually called me and said, I want to learn about your son. And so I want to tell you a little bit about that, but I'm going to tell you about that later on. But I first want to share my screen and I want to talk about, let me see if I can pull that up. I want to talk about nutrition because that is my heart and soul. Let me tell you what I do today. I can't share the screen, Dr. Hatch. Maybe I can. There we go. All right. Can you all see this? Okay. Thumbs up. Yep. Okay. So I began this journey of, healing my child, right? And I became super passionate. And so today in my business now, I actually run a business and I do nutrition for everyone. But again, I really love to speak to parents and help parents who have kids on the spectrum. And I also do some contract work with some naturopathic doctors, and we specifically see ADHD, autism, and pandas. And my role there is really lifestyle, right? I walk alongside of parents. So part of this is me telling you my story. And I also want to tell you, just how foundational nutrition is. So I'm going to scroll down. So first and foremost, please tell me you're going to cut out the junk food, right? Tell me that you are. So processed foods are full of chemicals, they're full of additives, and they actually deplete the body of the nutrients that we need. They actually, if you have nutrients in, they actually pull those nutrients out. So the dyes and the chemicals and the additives that are found in foods actually have been shown to make behaviors worse. So we know that our kids on the spectrum, we're trying to get them to live the best quality life that they possibly can. Well, the food that we feed them is going to have an impact on that. So children with autism and any type of neurodevelopmental delays, they have a delayed ability to detoxify in their body. So these chemicals and additives, they're more harmful and they're a greater burden and a toxic load than our atypical kiddos, right? So they have an extra difficult time detoxifying all of that coming in. So the chemicals have been shown to cause hyperactivity, inattentiveness, impulsivity, aggressiveness, and even sleep challenges. So hopefully right there, you can see the power of that cleanup right there. Okay. So we want to get rid of that junk food. What I see sometimes is that people kind of level up the junk food. Nah, there's no leveling up. Let's get rid of it and let's bring in whole foods. So what does that mean? So our standard American diet, it's lacking in nutrients. It's the fast food, it's the packaged foods, it's the processed foods. This is the quickness, right? I'm just going to grab and go. But here's the thing, we have to consume real whole foods because if we don't, we're missing out on macronutrients, which is our fats, proteins, and carbs. And then we're also missing out on micronutrients. So micronutrients are also in our whole foods, and that's where our vitamins and nutrients come from. So you guys, if we're not feeding a whole foods diet to ourselves or to our children, we're missing out on a massive amount of vitamins and nutrients. And our body is actually deficient in those vital nutrients. And if those nutrients don't exist and we have deficiencies, it affects every single system of the body. So we might look at it and go, hey, you know what? I need their brain to work better. But you know what? Their gut might need to work better. And then when their gut works better, their brain works better. And our cardiovascular system works better because it's all about our systems intrinsically just working well together. And when one system is taxed and it's depleted, other systems will also pay the price for that too. So this is a big one that I talk to parents about and they go, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Well, I want to talk to you about why it's important that you do it. One thing that I talk a lot with my parents that I support is when you become educated, then you become empowered to make the choices that you need to make for your family, right? Now it's a choice. You learn the education and now you have a choice. I either say, yep, I'm going to do that, or I'm going to ignore the education and go, you know what, that doesn't work for me. And that is your choice. But I want to tell you how important it is that eliminating gluten, dairy, and soy is from your kids' diet. Gluten is a protein found in wheat. I'm sure you all have heard like, oh, it's the rage of being gluten-free. It's really not a rage. The science is there. And gluten is really the glue, right? It's what makes pasta and bread taste yummy. Because if any of you had gluten-free bread, you might be like, yeah, because it's missing that glue, and that's gooiness, right? And that's the texture that we like. So gluten and dairy are both inflammatory. They can cause a disruption in the already compromised digestive system. So what we know about our kids on the spectrum is that their digestive system is compromised. And we know that the digestive system speaks to the brain and vice versa. We also know that neurotransmitters are made in the digestive system. So if that digestive system is compromised, we know that there is going to be a lack of neurotransmitters. Serotonin is a really powerful one. 90% of it is made in the digestive system. So if we don't have a healthy digestive system, we're going to present with things like hyperactivity, mood disorder, anxiety, sleeplessness. So these, not being able to break down these proteins found in these specific 3 foods can have a negative neurological effect with those that are on the spectrum. And I say spectrum, right? Autism, but a lot of our kiddos with autism also present with ADHD, and a lot of our kids with ADHD, maybe primary diagnosis, actually fall on the spectrum too. And so here's what's really important for you to know. We have these dopamine receptors in our brain, and these foods actually are like morphine. Okay, take a moment to take that in. These proteins are actually like morphine. They become highly addictive, and they can actually cause kids to become really intense over their food preferences and cravings. So I don't know if you've ever experienced this before. Who is listening right now that needs to hear this? This was my child. Actually, he's still like this, very addictive type of personality, but he would only eat these particular foods, right? And you'll find that typically those foods are going to be the foods that are high in gluten, high in dairy, and high in sugar. And so removing these foods allow the body to reset. So because it's like a detox. When you remove something, we become less dependent on it. So we need to remove those foods so that we become less dependent, and that dopamine reward is no longer present. So then what happens is our kids start to have more connection, and learning difficulties we can see get better. Less anxiety happens, and their overall cognition and cognitive ability increases. Doesn't that sound amazing? That can happen with just removing some particular foods. And let's talk about also food sensitivities that are highly prevalent in kids that are on the spectrum as well. And really the reason why, in my belief, again, I'm coming to you as a nutritionist here. My belief is because the gut has some dysbiosis, it's unbalanced, and most likely has some mucosal damage, which can lead to leaky gut over time. And I would never say that anyone has that without going through proper testing to find out. But food sensitivities exist typically because there is a breakdown in the barrier of the mucosal lining. So food sensitivities, I call them the hidden stressor because it's a sensitivity, right? So it's not an allergy. An allergy is something you see right away. A sensitivity is something that just builds and builds and builds and builds. Well, what can happen when food sensitivities exist is constipation, tummy aches, a lot of congestion. That can happen a lot with dairy. There's extra mucus production that happens. Again, some anxiety, mood imbalances, and even some depression. So one thing that I like to do with my families, especially when I'm just bringing them on, is I do the food removal, right? And then I also educate on how I can build up the system. What kind of foods can I bring in to build up? And this is one of the key components, is running a food sensitivity test. I love to do that on my kiddos because even a lot of times it can be a healthy food that they're having, but their body is still having a sensitivity to it. And so I call it the hidden stressor. And so when there's hidden stressors, it's going to stall that healing environment. But when we can uncover healing, when we can uncover the hidden stressors, then we can also create the opportunity for a more healing environment. Next thing Who can relate here? Pick me. Pick me. Holy cow. That was the thing. When we first started this journey, I was like, okay, if I remove all of these foods, my kid is going to starve. He literally will not eat. But here's what we know to be true. The brain is powerful, and the brain will never, ever let the body starve. It just won't. And so what I teach my parents is you got to clean it up. You're the gatekeeper. You hold the key to what goes in your kitchen. And so I remember one time talking to a mom, and she's like, well, you've helped me. We were actually talking because she started her Child on Life Vantage products, and they were having a really great result. And she said, now you need to help me get rid of top ramen from his diet. And I was like, stop buying top ramen. There you go. So that's the thing, is that we are the gatekeeper, you guys. We allow food into our kitchen, and we do it because, yes, will they tantrum? Yes, will they be manipulative and try to get us to, yes, all of those things will exist. They are human beings and they want what they want. But here's the thing, when we lovingly hold space and we lovingly give the space to the fact that, hey, listen, I love you so much, and I know the potential of your body to heal. And because I know that, this mommy right here is going to bring good food in this house. And I can't wait, because you're going to love it one day. And I don't know when it is. We're just going to hold space for that. So we know that 80% of the kids on the spectrum, they have food aversions, and they are considered picky eaters. I just talked to a mom actually last night that said, okay, I did it. I cleaned up the kitchen. I did it. I'm fully in. And I said, okay, tell me the results. What's happening? And she said, for a couple of days, he was like, meh, I don't want that. And she's like, literally, he ate 6 mangoes. I'm like, I'm okay with 6 mangoes, right? It's okay, because that was a food he wasn't eating before. And so as the palate starts to open up, because we've taken away the junk food that's literally putting a coating on their tongue and hitting those dopamine receptors and wanting them to come back for more rewards, when that is gone and that system can regulate, they become more open about the food that can come into their body. And you guys, that's when we see like such beautiful, great results. So we need to eliminate those foods. And I tell you, it will make a big difference, and the palate will open. So this is the other thing I work with a lot of my parents with too, because here's what I've learned over the years. There's no magic bullet. There's not. These kiddos are complex, and we need to treat them with the complexity that they have. All people are complex, right? But we need to approach it with a complex attitude. And so we know that there's layers and layers and layers of healing. And I always tell my parents, listen, I have a toolbox with a lot of tools in it, and I'm one of the tools. I'm one of the tools. But I have a lot of resources, and I do a lot of referring out so that we can bring all the tools together. And guess what happens? Healing. So think of that toolbox with lots of tools in there. And when I add tools and I add tools to the toolbox, I have a complete set. And then I'm able to really get in and do the work. So it's the same thing with our kids. We're adding in different modalities, different therapies, and different tools. Well, here's what we know about nutrition. Unfortunately, I hate that it's true, but it is true. The nutrition that we have today is not the same as it was 30 years ago. The food industry came in the 80s, and it completely wreaked havoc. So taking those processed foods away and moving to whole foods is a must. But even when we get in that world of whole foods, you need to realize and understand that they're still lacking nutrients and vitamins, because the broccoli and the spinach that we have today does not have as much nutrients as what we had years ago. So then that's when we come in and we do supplementation. And I always do food first. And then we come in and we supplement, because what is a supplement? A supplement is to supplement what the diet doesn't have. Okay. So fish oils are a must, because it's an omega-3 fatty acid, and it helps reduce inflammation. And I was doing that with my son. Probiotics are a must, because I would like to say that I'm going to say majority, but I'm reaching up there in the 90s to 100, that these kids on the spectrum have gut issues. So we want a good probiotic. I had my kiddo on that, and I had him on lots of other things, and we were doing good nutrition, and we were still missing the boat. We were still missing the opportunity to have him off of all medications, because unfortunately at the age of 6, even though all of the natural things we were doing, he ended up being put on medications, and I hated it. It wasn't a part of who I am. But at the same time, I needed my kid to be successful because he wasn't. And so I was super open. And so when that conversation happened in my office that I really didn't want to have that morning, and when Dr. Brimhall called me and said, you really need to take a look at what else might be able to help your son, I said, okay, talk to me. And so I listened and I learned about protandem. And if you guys have been seeing these other Zooms that we've had prior to this, you learned about oxidative stress. I saw Marco's amazing presentation last week where he presented on oxidative stress. But if you're new tonight and you haven't learned about that, make sure that you do. But basically, oxidative stress is an accumulation of free radicals, and it's cellular damage, and it leads to inflammation. And when that accumulates and it's high, which the studies show that kids on the spectrum with ADHD have high oxidative stress levels. And when we can reduce that, which protandem does, then we can have really beautiful effects that can happen because oxidative stress leads to inflammation. So reducing that will also help with our kids start to be more regulated. So that's what we experienced. Just a couple of weeks after being on the products that we added in, we had amazing experience with it. And my son started to be more present and he started to be more regulated. His impulsivity came down. Eventually, we were able to pull off some of the medications with a combination of everything that we were doing. And today, what we started that was he just turned 11. And so when we started, he was just turned 7. And so here we are, and he still remains medication free. And it's been a really wonderful experience for us because we felt like we got to see our kiddo again. So I always say, I don't know what your story is and I don't know what you're dealing with. So if you need a story though, grab onto mine and have hope. Because I can tell you when we were first, not we were diagnosed, when he was first diagnosed, I remember feeling hopeless. And that's why I now do what I do. That's why I have a business that helps come alongside other parents to say, hey, listen, you're not in this alone. We're a support system and we're better together. Because as parents, we're exhausted for kids on the spectrum. We're exhausted and we need support and we need to feel encouraged and we need one another. And, I don't, like I said, I don't know your story, but I just know that I felt those feelings. And I also know that I'm on the other side and I was given that hope and I said yes to it. And I started my child on it right away. Oh, and here's another part. So the person that also helped me get my son started on protandem, she's like, oh, and you need this too. And I was like, no, I'm totally fine. Like, I do not need this. Like, I got this. And her words were, how can you be living the life you have and say you got it? And I was like, oh yeah. So the fact that I can't take a deep breath and I feel like there's an elephant on my chest, that's not normal. Okay. And so, hey, mom and dads that are out there, you also need to take care of yourself. We pour so much into our kiddos and all of their high needs. And if you're anything like me and you can relate to this, just today, it's like therapeutic counseling appointment, take him to school, pick him up at school, over to equine therapy, then back, boop, 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 boop. You're managing all that stuff. How can that not be stressful in your life? How can you not be also accumulating oxidative stress in your body too? You are. So I want to encourage you too, that what you give to your child, please give to yourself too. You feed your kids whole foods, feed yourself whole foods. You are going to give opportunities for your child to be a part of therapies, be a part of therapies too. Do them alongside of them. And then my last slide here is to say to you that toolbox. It really is a multidisciplinary approach. And it takes multiple therapeutic options for us to really be able to get our kids to be living their best life. Just know that nutrition is one of them. Supplementation activation is another one of them. Maybe chiropractor, yes, chiropractor is another one of them. Whatever we can do to help regulate our child. Advocacy, making sure that you have somebody to speak up for you in the school system, because we're not experts in that and we're exhausted and we're emotionally connected to the situation. And I could not go to an IEP meeting without tears and barely being able to speak. So you know what? Somebody else, I'm going to pay you money and you can come and speak for me because you know the law and you can speak up better than me. So my message to all of you is just be open-minded and reach out. this is my website, which you can also send me a message on. You can friend me on Facebook, send me a message on that. Anything that I can do to help support any of you, I 100% would be here for that. I also take on clients in my nutrition business if you needed help with that. But really, I just want to give the message of hope and that you're not alone, because the journey can feel that way, but it doesn't have to feel that way. So thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I hope that you were able to get some value out of this evening. I also know that some of this might be things that you already know, which is, I do want to say this too. Can I actually say one more thing? When we go gluten-free, it doesn't mean we go junk food free. Okay, we can still have dirty gluten-free food. So if you ever need to connect with me, I have an army of goodness. I have actually a free ebook that if you wanted to message me, I'd be happy to, and I call it Snacks on the Go, that I give out to my parents, just things that you can create in your kitchen. We have kiddos, on the spectrum that maybe are eating 3 or 4 foods that are now eating 6, 7, 8 foods. We're just patient. We're just really patient with them. And we're holding that space for them of like, hey, you know what? I love you. Just take a bite for me. And so eventually, you guys, their palate changes and it can get better. But listen, it is a journey. This is not a quick fix. We don't give one food and they hate it. And we think, oh, that's it. I'm going to give up and walk away. How many times? Just for a neurotypical child, it's 15 to 20 tastes before they can really make an opinion. And that's neurotypical. So now our kids that are neuroatypical, that's a much, much higher for them. So just walk that journey with them. And it's, again, you've heard this so many times, it is a marathon. We are not sprinting with our kids because we will lose, right? It is a marathon, and we just keep showing up every day and doing the best we can with the knowledge that you have. So I hope that you learned something new today that you can add into your life that will just give you a couple steps closer to you helping your child or yourself heal. Thank you.
Stephanie, thank you.
Welcome.
That's amazing. I just love it. I mean, the information that you gave, this passion that you have, I love the fact that you have such a passion for this, and that makes it so much more powerful to feel that emotion.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful. I'm so grateful that I've been able to know you for the last 4 years.
Me too.
Honor it is for me to do that. I want to actually stop the recording here just right now. So if there's somebody who has a few questions, let's take a few questions and answer that for them. And then we'll meet next week for Wellness Wednesday again. Okay.
Yeah, awesome.
Thanks for watching. And remember, one change can have an enormous effect. Remember to subscribe, hit the bell and the like, and we'll see you next time on Love to Live.